Are we going to get Tata today? Tata's coming to see you. Good morning, almost 1-year-old person. Hello everyone, we are here in Terminal 3 waiting for my dad to get out. Apparently, according to this information board, he's probably picking up his baggage right now, and we're here on time. Everything seems to have gone quite smoothly. I'm really excited to see my dad, but I am also sad that my mum will not be coming out. So I really do feel that this trip of his, being in Japan for a month, for Rio's first birthday and Christmas and New Year and what was supposed to be a very lovely time, I think it will be full of laughter and of tears. I'm feeling very emotional today, and I hope that we can enjoy the time together that we have. If anything I've learned throughout the past 2 months is that it's not about regret, it's about taking that time and really investing in the time that you spend with people, being present and kind. So yeah, let's go and have a look. Hello. Tata. Hello everyone. I do apologise for looking very sleepless. It's because I am. I thought I would just drop on here and make a little video about the recent visit from my dad. He came out here for baby's first birthday and Christmas and New Year Japan style, and I did want to make a video with him to let you know how it all went. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't really up for being in a video talking about his trip because it's a pretty emotional time, having just lost my mum and who should have been on the trip with us. So he wasn't really comfortable to talk about that. However, he had so much to say about his time in Japan. So I thought I'd jump on here and make this video to share a little bit about those events that happened, but also just to share some of the really interesting comments that he made from the perspective of a foreigner coming into a sort of Japanese family home. It's very interesting because I've been here for such a long time living in Japan that these are things that I don't necessarily notice anymore, but when he commented on them, I was like, oh yeah, like it is very different, or it's very unique. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy these points that Dad found most surprising or enjoyable about life in Japan. Hajimemashou. So I'll start by talking about Rio's birthday, his first birthday party.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
For which he was asleep when the guests arrived. No, it was lovely. It was very small and cozy. We had 2 of his baby friends, so 3 babies all together, and a slightly older child, 4-year-old or 5-year-old. And then my parents-in-law, my dad, and my friends, who are the mothers of the children. And it was really lovely. We dressed baby up in a little suit. It was at home, it was very easygoing and very, very nice.
Everyone's gonna have a slice of cake.
I think I was so excited for it that the next morning I was not feeling good and I just had to stay in bed. And so my husband kindly took my dad and off they went to take the opportunity and go for some ramen. There was like this famous place in the area where we live, which gets extremely popular. So they went off and they had ramen, and my dad he's not really one to like go out to restaurants and things like that. Like that's not really his style. He's always one that prefers to make stuff from at home. And I was wondering, like, would he enjoy this ramen experience? Because it is very unique. Like, we don't really have anything like that in the UK. And then he came back and I was like, how was it? And honestly, like, he did not stop talking about that ramen experience. He had an amazing time, and I think he found it very novel, the way that like you go into your little booth and you write down your order, and just like the whole process of it was quite amazing for him. Then he was just so excited about this ramen experience that we went to Kappabashi in the hunt, number one for a Japanese knife, which my dad is obsessed with, but also to find some like ramen bowl with a special like ramen renge, which you kind of like hook on the side of your bowl. Thankfully, we did manage to find some bowls and some spoons and things like that. But yeah, he was like just so bowled over, like amazed by this whole ramen experience, which was something unlike any eating experience he'd ever had before. Now moving on to Christmas and New Year. Now, I think one surprising thing is how there isn't really that Christmas buzz in the air in Japan. Of course, you know, for religious reasons and just like cultural things, it's just not, it doesn't have that vibe. And I think my dad kind of noticed that because my husband works during the day and it isn't until the evening that we celebrate Christmas. So basically, my dad and I, with baby, were free to just sort of do whatever we wanted. And I think he found that a bit strange because in the UK, we start celebrating Christmas like the day before, like Christmas Eve. And it's always a very family thing. Like, you would not even think about going out to the shops or going to a restaurant. Like, it's so family. So on Christmas Day, we did the normal thing. We went to church, and then we were like in town, and I was like, should we go and get some food? And so like for my dad, going to a restaurant on Christmas Day was like, that was a really big surprise for him, I think, because traditionally we'd be having a big lunch at home. So that was a bit of a surprise. And then we came home and I made stuffing, and this is what I do. I pour myself a nice glass of, I think it was a G&T, and I just make the stuffing and prepare all the dishes very slowly. And then when my husband finishes work, we can have a glass of champagne and celebrate Christmas together. And so it was just different. And I'm not going to get too like emotional here, but I think Christmas was always going to be different for us because Mum wasn't there. And much like New Year in Japan, like the mother is like the main figure in Christmas. You know, she's doing the preparations and she was the religious one. So we celebrated Christmas like in Mum's way. Whereas like coming to Japan, it was a very, very different Christmas to the Christmases that my father is typically used to. And actually, I think that was a really good thing because, well, it was never going to be the way that Mum did it. I said earlier that Christmas doesn't have that buzz like it does in the UK. It doesn't have that Christmassy tingle feeling. However, there's definitely a kind of magic around New Year. And I think that's a really interesting thing, is that the Christmas of the UK is the New Year of Japan. And in the UK, we don't really celebrate New Year in the same way that you do in Japan. And it's a beautiful thing actually to see that actually you do have that magical family moment, but it's just a few days later in Japan. Unfortunately, we weren't able to see my parents-in-law for the usual Japanese New Year or Shogatsu celebration, but my mother-in-law sent so much homemade osechi, which we enjoyed on the 2nd of January. And it was like my dad, you know, I told you he's a foodie. He was silent whilst eating. He was looking at all the things and amazed by the story, like the journey of food that osechi brings. Even for me, like I love osechi too, and I love how each thing has a symbolic meaning. And I don't know if this is just me, but it seems like each year, the thing that I love changes. So like the first year I loved kurikinton, and then the next year I was like, yeah, it's nice, but I really love this. Or it was like kobumaki was last year, so I bought like extra kobumaki this year. But this year I was like, you know what, what did I love this year? I loved the journey, actually. I loved every little bit. It was just so interesting and fun and so special to that time of year. So yeah, my dad absolutely loved the osechi, as clearly did I. So typically my dad doesn't usually go out to restaurants, but we do. Especially on the weekend, it's nice family time, and we go out for lunch usually because obviously our baby's still a bit young and dinner times is just easier at home. But we did go out to a few restaurants, and my dad was like amazed at the noises basically in a restaurant. So, you know, you come in and in many restaurants they say, welcome, irashaimase, welcome to the customer, and then they do an order and they say, okay, got the order, and like there's a lot of vocal things going on amongst the waiters and waitresses in a restaurant. In the UK, I guess we just don't have that. So every time they went, irashaimase, or like, arigatou gozaimashita, or something like that, my dad was like, hey, like chuckling away, like what's going on? Why is everyone shouting? Like, you know, he just didn't understand it because we just don't have that in restaurant culture or like hospitality culture in the UK. So that was just like a funny thing because for me, I have just become used to it now. I don't see it as different or strange or unexpected. Whereas when my dad said these things or made these comments, I realized, number one, that doesn't happen in the UK. And number two, how much I've adapted to life here to the point where these funny little things you don't think about anymore. On that note, the 5 o'clock bell, like at first my dad's like, is someone at the door? I'm like, no, it's the 5 o'clock bell. And he's like, what's it for? And I'm like, to say that it's 5 o'clock. And he's like, why? I'm like, because it's the 5 o'clock bell. Like, you know, we don't have a 5 o'clock bell in the UK. And in fact, I don't think in any other country. I think it's only in Japan. And it's just one of those things that at first I remember actually being like so charmed and like, whoa, it's the 5 o'clock bell. It must be 5 o'clock kind of thing. Whereas now it's like, just kind of, you almost don't even hear it. It's just so normal. This is more to do with me actually, but yeah, on New Year's Day, we went down to the shrine and the line of people queuing to say a prayer for New Year, it's a really lovely thing. And it's, again, this is a very unique Japanese thing, but people say that they're not religious, yet they go to the shrine for New Year. For me, I believe in faith as opposed to religion. It's a difficult topic. I know everyone has their own beliefs and stuff, and I don't judge anyone for what they believe in, but for me it's more a case of like believing in something, in a higher power, and believing in yourself and believing in like the good of other people. So there's definitely faith and belief, but I wouldn't say it's a religion. And that is something that I feel and I felt when I first came to Japan, that people have that belief or that faith, but it isn't weighed down in one type of religion. Does that make any sense at all? I'm not sure, but I love that. It's a very flexible approach and it's one that's very real. Like, be good to other people or treat others the way you want to be treated. Be a kind person. You know, we are born from a place of love, so don't forget that. All those kinds of things. So every time I go to the shrine, not just on New Year, but actually every time I go to a shrine and I see people praying, and I think that is the invisible thread that ties humans together, whether you're religious or not. So back to the food topic. Again, this is something that made me realize how much I've changed, the way that I eat and the way that I just like see things. So we wanted my dad to really experience Japanese food and enjoy maybe more everyday things, but also like nicer things. So we bought some unagi and some tamagoyaki, and we had like a nice dinner of these things. And of course my dad was very grateful and he enjoyed, but I don't think he understood like the nuance or like the association of unagi. You know, like for us or for me and many Japanese, I think it's like, wow, unagi, like that's very special and like quite gorgeous, quite expensive. And my dad enjoyed the meal, as he always does, but it wasn't like that same kind of like wow factor. However, just randomly going to the fish market near where I live, he was amazed by all the different fishes. And he was like checking like the translation of each of the fish, and his eyes were like lit up. He was amazed by everything, taking photos, he just loved it so much. But for me, that's literally just like I go every day, pick up some fish, done. You know, it's not like I don't feel like wow anymore. It's very interesting because obviously in Japan there are so many fish and even just like other sea-related things that I don't even know what they are sometimes. But there's so much in Japan that you would definitely not see in a British supermarket. So he really enjoyed cooking. He made lots of fantastic meals using the produce that he bought. And sometimes he bought stuff and I didn't know what it was, he didn't know what it was, but it tasted good. So my dad kind of kept asking me, we'd go shopping and he's like, so how would you like your salmon? And I'm like, to be quite honest, I just love sashimi. Like, I just love sonomama as it is. Whereas my dad's more interested in sort of combining the flavors and cooking with cream and white wine. And I mean, I won't lie, I really enjoyed giving up the kitchen so that he could make his creations. But yeah, it's funny how your tastes change the longer that you stay in Japan. One thing we both commented on was how sunny Japan is. At this time of year in the UK, it is dark. It is often rainy, even snowing this year, and just like cold and not very inviting to go outside. But for us, every single day, apart from the last day, it was sunny. Not just like not raining, but like sunny. And then on the last day, it rained. So that was something like really, really good for our moods, I think. Like at this time of year, we're missing mum, and the fact that it was sunny and we could go out for walks and just like enjoy being outside was a really good thing for us. So thank you, sun god, for blessing us with this lovely weather. Okay, my last point is one that really surprised my dad about our life, I think, and that is to do with the hugeness of Tokyo. In my hometown, in the city, if you drove for 30 minutes, you'd kind of like go beyond the other side of it. Whereas here in Tokyo, you can get a train for an hour just to kind of meet up with friends or something. And he was just amazed by how huge it is and how complex the train system is, like how clever and like well put together and well organized it all is. Everything is just very thought out here, and the fact that it's kind of normal to travel for such a long distance is something quite amazing, I think, just how humongous the city is and how easy it is to travel around it. Right, I think that's long enough. I'm sure there's loads more things, which of course I'll only think of once I finish filming. But I'm gonna say thank you so much for watching today. Do leave your comments, and until next time, bye-bye.